So in the last video, I talked about Resident Evil 7, and considering I already reviewed Resident Evil Village, I'm pretty much caught up with all the mainline titles, right? There are still 2 mainline titles that we have to talk about, so let's rewind back to ancient times, or what I like to call 2002, as we grab our tickets and hop on this train ride to hell together. So Resident Evil 0 came out in 2002, and this might be the most divided Resident Evil game among the fans. Because for the most part, the majority of fans hate 5 and 6, while they love 1 through 4. But for some reason, this game is so divided by fans that no one can agree on whether or not this game is good or bad. But like most of my reviews, the only opinions that matter in this fan base are mine. So after going through this game from start to finish, I can truly say that this game, definitely a game. I mean, it has buttons, characters, graphics, buttons. So in this game, you play as Rebecca Chambers and Billy Cohen. Rebecca's a part of the STARS Police Force Bravo team, which was the first team sent to investigate the mansion in Resident Evil 1. And Billy is an ex-lieutenant gone rogue, who was on death row for allegedly killing 23 people. And during this time, they fight off leeches, scorpions, monkeys, and a whole Final Fantasy character. What the fuck is this game? So now Rebecca and Billy's goal is to find a way off this train ride from hell. So this game is technically the origin story for the entire Resident Evil franchise. But for this being an origin story, I feel like we didn't get that much of an origin. We get a bit of lore from the main villain on how the outbreak at the mansion happened, but I was hoping we'd get more lore on how the virus was created in the first place. It would have been so cool to see the operations of Umbrella from the inside, as we eventually discover just how diabolically insane this company truly was. I like Rebecca and Billy, don't get me wrong, but do you want to know who I think would have been a perfect main character for a Resident Evil origin story? Albert Wesker. I would have loved to have seen an origin story from Albert Wesker's point of view. From his creation to how he got started working with Umbrella to his relationship with William Birkin and how he eventually became an agent for STARS. And fans have already made comics that go into this. But I know the writers might not want a villain to be the protagonist of a mainline title, but that is the main reason why he is the perfect character for an origin story. The origins of a game like Resident Evil should be a tragedy. We already know that there's no happy ending for what the virus leads to, but instead of that, we got Rebecca and Billy on a train. Yay. And when it comes to the story, it's honestly very difficult for me to take this story seriously. When you have a giant scorpion and an opera singer, and the dialogue also doesn't help with this issue.
The forest is full of zombies and monsters.
Zombies and monsters.
This may be one of the funniest Resident Evil games for all the wrong reasons. That being said, the one thing I did enjoy from the story was the relationship between Billy and Rebecca. The moments they have don't feel extremely cheesy like the rest of the dialogue, so it at least goes from sounding like an episode of Power Rangers to sounding like an episode of an above-average soap opera. But the moment any substance of a good story gets ripped away from me is whenever the villain is on screen. Who in their right mind thought that this character design would be intimidating or scary in the slightest? Did a game designer go to an opera house one night and shit himself? You know what? Maybe I'm being too harsh, because maybe, just maybe, this design could work if you give him the right voice with some powerful dialogue.
Now I will have my revenge on Umbrella, and the world will burn in an inferno of hate. You'll pay for what you've done.
Let's just jump into the gameplay. So the gameplay is very similar to Resident Evil 1, but the thing that sets it apart from Resident Evil 1 is the fact that you play as 2 characters in this game. Now, I honestly don't hate this mechanic, and it was honestly a very unique way to use 2 characters in single player. My only problem with this mechanic is, Why is there no multiplayer in this game? You have 2 playable characters on screen. So how in the hell is there no 2-player co-op in this game? Anyone who has seen my Resident Evil 6 review already knows just how much more fun these games could be with the right friend to back you up. And because of the fact there's no multiplayer in this game, I'd much rather play Resident Evil 6. And it also doesn't help that I'm not a big fan of the tank control style in Resident Evil anyway. I probably enjoyed it the most in the first game, but when it comes to this game, honestly, the visuals kept me going more than the gameplay. The main thing I can praise this game for is the atmosphere and visuals. Just like in Resident Evil 1, the pre-rendered backgrounds look beautiful in this game. I honestly love the atmosphere of the abandoned train and all the other areas in this game, and the soundtrack brings it all together, from the eerie yet calm music on the train to the terrifying and guttural music of the Leech Man. It's music like this that makes me hate whenever a Resident Evil game gives us no music to accompany an area or a monster encounter. Honestly, what's crazy is that Resident Evil 0 had all of the elements to make an amazing Resident Evil game, which is why I understand why fans are so conflicted about it. But unfortunately, they just didn't execute those elements as well as the Resident Evil 1 remake. But with all that said, Resident Evil 0 gave us some cheesy dialogue, great visuals, and quite possibly the funniest villain in the Resident Evil franchise for all of the wrong reasons. So with all that said, my final verdict for Resident Evil 0 is the bronze seal of approval.